So I'm here with Jackie, who has given many powerful speeches exposing corruption. At one of the last events, Millions March against mandatory vaccines, her speech was rudely interrupted by police. Their behaviour was despicable. What's been your take on that so far?
Well, it's a fear-mongering tactic, that's the thing, but I was pleased to see when I looked back on some of the videos that as they had interrupted, just with the fear-mongering tactic that you are not keeping social distancing, COVID-19 laws, I got back on the megaphone and just yelled back at them that these are directives, they are not laws, and laws require our consent. And it was interesting to see that they stopped straight away and he started talking into his jacket asking for, what am I going to do now? And then they just slowly started to reverse and they left. But look, providing you're respectful, but they will try with the fear-mongering tactics. They're fooling people. They are directives and they require consent. They're not valid laws.
Yes, exactly.
Not laws at all.
And you stipulated that quite clearly. And it shows they're not there to serve and protect the public. They're there serving their Freemason masters, the corporate politicians, the ones that are corrupt to the core. They have no interest in people. They're pushing a new world order scheme. Their standover tactics confirm that. What would you say to the people that are worried and they're in fear about this new takeover, martial law and everything that encompasses that?
Well, it is slowly unfolding and people need to wake up to it. I spoke earlier on, just for examples of what they've done to this country. So the bushfires were definitely enhanced, shall we say. And there is scientific evidence that those bushfires burnt a lot hotter and a lot stronger, not just due to no backburning occurring, so the undergrowth was astronomical there, but also because of the elements in the chemtrails. So the chemicals in those chemtrails made it a lot more flammable and the heat was absolutely intense. But if you overlay exactly where the bushfires went through with a map of the proposed new rail, they match perfectly. And it is the first time I have ever heard that in Australia's history, after bushfires, our bush is allowed to regenerate. What they're doing is, surprisingly, where the rail's going, they've started to clear. They're bringing in bulldozers and taking it down. They've been ruining koala colonies and ecosystems in doing so, not having no regard for it whatsoever. They've also, while we've been in lockdown, I know in Victoria alone, out of our approximate 79 shires, they've designated, I think, 75, approximately, as bushfire zones. So all those donations, those millions, hundreds of millions of billions of dollars in bushfire donations are not going out to the people because they've changed the law. They are not allowed to rebuild there. They're trying to push everybody into the cities so they can control them, track and control. And that's basically what it's all about.
Yes, excellent description of what's taking place. It's premeditated murder, stopping the backburning, and then spraying flammable particles, creating a raging inferno, as well as setting up for the new rail system. They're really taking a toll on the people. Everybody's suffering, and then it's from the bushfire victims, and then we've got COVID-19, the riots. People don't know what's next, and we have a lot of divide and conquer strategies put on the people at the moment. Everybody's arguing. What would you say to some of the people that are really at a feud on some of the comment sections? Everybody's really up in arms about everything that's taking place.
People need to do their research. This is not something that has happened overnight. This has been occurring over decades. We had the Lima Agreement that was signed in '73 that brought us in with the UN. There has been so many underhanded tactics that are in breach of our human rights, in breach of our constitution. Even when they hold referendums, they will change the wording of it to make it sound as though it's favourable. We had the Gough Whitlam and the palace letters to the Queen are about to come out. Now, him being sacked by Kerr, you have got so much corruption and concealment that has gone on for absolute decades. You've got 1986, The Australia Act, totally invalid. It goes against everything. No referendum was held for that. It is invalid, and that is in the courts being proven. I mean, we can show it when we go through all our law books and the Constitution. Nothing is being done correctly. They have slowly but surely, if you look 50 years ago, Australia was one of the healthiest, richest nations, and we were a totally self-sustaining country. We were rich in everything. But what's happened is the government has sold us out. So they have sold our resources. So if you break the word down, Commonwealth of Australia, Commonwealth into two words, it is the Commonwealth of the people. The government has stolen our Commonwealth and they have sold it to foreign interest. They have sold our land, our resources, our minerals, and people need to start to realise that we should not be paying these astronomical amounts for our power, our gas, our water. It's because we are buying them back at 10 times the price from the foreign entities the government have sold them to. We are buying back what is ours at astronomical, interest rates and additional charges. Look, it goes on and on. They have removed the manufacture and production and sent that overseas. They have slowly made us more reliant on trade, bringing things in here. So it's a long process, and the farmers hitting them, not allowing them water in the drought, that is one of the biggest things that has really hit me. We had hundreds commit suicide. Now, the droughts were manufactured, and there is plenty of evidence out there, even in your standard news. There are releases there about weather control and everything else, but we had these big news events on the Murray-Darling Basin, and all the poor cod were dying, 100-year-old cod, and what's happening? It's all and then we find out that the government has actually redirected two of our main rivers. They've ruined our Artesian water basin, and they've redirected those rivers and created 25 to 35 dams. Now, those dams were built with taxpayers' dollars. Those dams are filled with the water from those rivers, rediverted. We can't access that water. They've sold it to foreign interest within Australia. It's an absolute bloody crime. We've got so much stuff that needs to be disclosed. I don't even watch the TV anymore because it's just rubbish. We've got so many issues going on in this country. We've got 43,000 fracking wells across Australia. Do the people know about that? No, they don't.
That's exactly right. 100%. And the fracking wells, we've got farmers, they can set their water on fire. And you mentioned the suicide rates. It's absolutely horrifying what's taking place. People won't be able to recover from it. And a communist takeover, all our assets have been sold off. Well, you've done a phenomenal job. You've voiced this message out to the public. You're reaching the numbers. I truly applaud all your hard work, courage and determination. Let's keep making progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got to wake Australians up. So I'll give an email or two. We've got the email custodiansoftruth@protonmail.com, and we have also got one Australian sovereignty @protonmail.com. We've got letters for people to co-join us. We've got class actions, treasonous charges against Rob Hulls, Daniel Andrews, Julia Gillard, and so on and so on. These politicians and parliamentarians must be held accountable.
100%.
And the pedophile suppression orders. Yeah. For God's sake, get rid of pedophile suppression orders. These bastards need to be hung.
They sure do.
The National Immunisation Program schedule, which currently sits at around 50 doses of vaccines for children via single dose and combination shots. And we have no idea of the long-term consequences of this increasing vaccine load. Children are being grossly over-vaccinated with this plethora of vaccine products. This is the tip of the iceberg, and the connections and deceptions and concealment is layers thick. This manipulation of no jab, no play is in direct breach of Article 7 of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. It states no one shall be subject to torture or cruel, inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. In particular, no one shall be subject without his free consent.
Radiation safety limits. those limits are disputed. In Australia, we have our Panzer who set the radiation limits, and Telstra and Optus, NBN, and other operators work within them. They work with an international body called ICNIRP, and ICNIRP are a private member organisation. You have to be invited to be a member of ICNIRP. There's no charter, there's no international treaty that sets up ICNIRP. It's a private club set up in Germany. It's like a sports club. But nonetheless, they've set themselves up as the world experts and the ones that set the limits for anyone who subscribes to ICNIRP to operate under, which just happens to include our Panzer and therefore the Australian government.
I'm here with Richard, who gave a very powerful speech about the dangers of 5G radiation. Thank you very much for joining me. You've uncovered a lot of corruption surrounding these towers, the 5G grid. It's military-grade weaponry that's been handed down. What got you involved in your research and what compelled you to speak forward about this?
When I realised that I actually feel the effects of radiation, that it affects my health, and I realised that my kids at school are under Wi-Fi repeaters all day long, and that affects them, I started communicating with my parliamentarians and my representatives at that point, and started finding out that they did not represent my needs and the needs of my family and children. That was a real wake-up call, and since then we've seen the emergence of the 5G towers being built out, and that is just taking things to another level. On the one hand, it's only a bit more. On the other hand, it's everything. And so I've been really pleased to see the grassroots movement where the Stop 5G protests have come out. And really, people from all walks of life have realised that there's a problem. Maybe they can't really identify and put their finger on the button what the problem is, but they know there's a problem. And I've been trying to unearth what those problems are and shine some light and actually try and come up with solutions, but it's not easy.
No, we have a lot stacked against us, but you're doing a remarkable job. The towers and the radiation, it affects people on a cellular level, the uptake of hemoglobin. We have the elderly waking up in the middle of the night with migraines, the smart meters. It's a radiation soup that we're living in. What would be your advice to someone that wants to protect themselves from this?
The typical recommendation is to try and keep distance. I have a mobile phone, but it's switched off all the time. Okay? Have your Wi-Fi router away from you. If you can switch it off at night, so much the better. Be careful about things like cordless phones, which are even worse. But in the modern world we live in, there's more and more devices, more and more gadgets, and they're being sold for all the benefits, and we love our gadgets. But you need to realise what they are. They're extra levels of control. They're not built with your needs in mind. They're built with somebody else's needs, and they're coming in under your consent because you buy them. So be careful what you do and just try and switch off, get some distance and protect yourself.
Yes, very well done. And some of the symptoms, it can also mimic flu-like symptoms, can't it, as well? That's why people are confused, COVID-19 and the 5G towers. They don't know whether to draw a link. They're unsure because it replicates that in itself, doesn't it?
Flu-like symptoms is one of the symptoms of microwave sickness and has been recognised as such for years. Now, is COVID caused by 5G or microwave radiation? I have no way of knowing, and I'm not going to make that assertion because I don't know.
Smart move, yeah.
But I don't know because nobody's looking and there's no research being done. The research into 5G safety has not started yet. Okay, so 5G is being rolled out and there's no safety studies. Those studies are only starting this year and it'll take years to complete. But when they studied 2G and 3G radiation in the past, like with the NTP study that finished in the US last year, a $25 million study, they found that was looking for cancer. And they found that 2G and 3G mobile phone radiation causes cancer unequivocally. There was a replication study actually at lower power levels in Italy, and that also confirmed that cancer was caused by mobile phone radiation. And that was previous generations. Now 5G is more dangerous because it's directional. The signals are much more chaotic and they're much more intense when they do narrow in on you. They focus and target the carrier of the phone. and the signal's directed straight at them. So we just don't know what the impacts are going to be, but I am very concerned with what I see from a technical point of view, and then we get to the public policy, which is just a disaster.
Yeah, it sure is. I'm very startled myself about the whole scheme and all the tests and studies. They're not accurate, they're invalid. There was one campaign, We Are Not Sam, a standard average size male. That's what they did the tests on. But that doesn't account for women and children, does it, Richard?
No, it doesn't, because Sam was a 100-kilo Marine. That's what that was modelled on. And even then, right, they basically look to see whether the water warms up, which doesn't accurately represent anything to do with biological systems and is totally irrelevant. And then as we're seeing the technology for millimetre wave radiation to be used in 5G in the future, when that's starting to be implemented, well, SAM is irrelevant, and the testing practices for that aren't even in place. The standards the standards body, which is, by the way, chaired by one of the chief engineers from Telstra, well, that's only just started to recognise how they're going to be testing millimetre wave radiation exposure. It's the Wild West out there.
It sure is. Well, you've done a terrific job explaining the corruption that's taking place, helping people protect themselves. We all have to remain vigilant and take precautions against this dangerous technology. Thank you very much, Richard.
Thanks very much.
You spoke before about the acts of treason and the systemic acts of treason committed by this government. And the reason this was able to be brought in was the 1986 Australia Act. And the 1986 Australia Act was the greatest act of treason ever committed on the people of this country. Now, I'm just going to draw your attention to a couple of things. Before I do that, we are filming a documentary, and it'll be a 3-part documentary, and it'll go through the legal speak of that, and also I'll put it into layperson speak so the normal person can understand that. And I don't mean any disrespect from that, because when I first started looking through all these legal documents, they're confusing, and they're written in a way so that me and you don't understand it. And there's a reason for that, because like Jackie said, constitution studies were taken out of our school curriculums in 1973 because the government didn't want us to know our rights. It's disgusting. And I understand a few, look, I work in the school system, and I understand that a few switched on teachers are reintroducing that, but it's not part of the curriculum. So good on them for doing that, but it needs to be part of the curriculum, as we know, because we need to know when our constitutional rights are being taken away from us. Yes. Now, in the Australia Act in 1986, and the Prime Minister at the time was Bob Hawke, and he took a window of opportunity. There was about a 12-month window of opportunity he had when every state premier was a Labor premier. And we're talking about Neville Wran, John Cain, Bannon, all the good guys. Not.
Joining me is Craig. He has delivered many speeches raising awareness about the danger that we're all in at the moment. One of the last protests, he suffered a head injury from the police. The brutality was extreme. How are you managing since then?
Oh, mate, as good as gold. I wouldn't say be extreme. Might be a bit of an overstatement. A lot of an overstatement. No, everything's fine. I've had worse cuts shaving myself, mate. So no, that's nothing to. That was a walk in the park on a Sunday school picnic, mate. So yeah, no, things have been great. Very focused, especially with uncovering all the corruption. The corruption and to deal with the treasonous Australia Act of 1986, as you know. We're filming that documentary and letting people know, and also starting to fight hard with lifting the suppression orders of the 28 pedophiles, and also the Mulligan report as well too, where over, nearly 400 people were point persons of interest, and only 2 were ever arrested. I mean, that's just insane. And then we have the 5G issues. We have the vaccination issues. We have, a raft of other issues, and it all comes back to one thing: All comes back to we're led by corrupt politicians for quite some time.
100%.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of Freemason politicians. They're masquerading as government, acting like they're on the best interests of the people, but they're certainly not.
Correct.
It's an organised crime, and you explained the Constitution. They're all operating in treason, and treason is punishable by death, isn't it?
It is, and the 1986 Australia Act was the most treasonous document ever written in this country. It was the greatest act of treason ever committed on the people of this country, and the systemic acts of treason after the Australia Act. The Australia Act was a document that basically says to the people, hey, this act we're writing to give us power to make changes. Well, that had to go to the people in the form of a referendum. I mean, and as you know, I mean, it's like, so up now in Canberra, what you have are a group of elite people, Freemasons, who don't give a damn about you or me, have systematically gone about changing the Constitution. We had Scotty from marketing, and I call him Scotty from marketing because he's not a Prime Minister's arsehole. Take out COAG a couple of weeks ago, virtually making us a dictatorship, a pseudo dictatorship, which we've been for ages. I mean, this is our country. What people need to start understanding is we make the rules. Turn off your TV, stop accepting that the politicians tell us what to do. We have the power what to do. We call the shots. They work for us. They're elected by us to do a job for us, not put in place their corporations' rules and make life harder for us. Enough is enough. Now, it's as simple as this. These parliamentary suppression orders that protect pedophiles, enough. Scotty from marketing, you're on notice. Scott Morrison, you are either a pedophile yourself or you protect them. Now, you might laugh at that. Really? You're either a pedophile yourself or you're protecting them by keeping these suppression orders on them. So which one is it, Morrison? You're a pedophile or you're protecting them, mate? Like all the rest of your cronies up in Canberra. Because we, the people, deserve to know. We want to know. Justice Roland Wood, you've got no right to say who and who can't find out the names of these pedophiles. You've got no right. It's not your call to say, well, hey, we're protecting the judiciary and people will lose faith in the judiciary. No, no, no. We'll have greater faith if you get rid of all the filthy rock spiders. Are you one of them, Justice Wood? Are you one of the pedophiles? Is that why he's protecting them? Enough's enough. Yep. I mean, if that doesn't make you disgusted, people of Australia, that our politicians think that it's okay to hide the names of 28 pedophiles, one being a former Prime Minister. So it's quite simple. Let's call a spade here. You're either a pedophile or you help protecting them. Take your choice. Which one are you?
Exactly. Those are the questions that we have to be asking. We have to take back our power, liberty and freedom. The child trafficking is happening on an industrial scale. The pedophiles are rampant all throughout Parliament. They're all compromised. The judges, lawyers, they're a big club. That's why they always look out for each other. They take these rituals, they take these secret oaths, and at the end of the day, they just do not care about the livelihood of the children.
You just got to look at what's happening lately. So we had the Greens MP charged with 10 years of child pornography and potential sex trafficking. We had the big pedophile ring bust up in Queensland the other week. We had a big pedophile bust last night in Canberra. All over not in Canberra, in Canada. All over the world this is happening. And, excuse me, you can guarantee the mainstream media is only reporting a tip of the iceberg. So, thanks very much for the chat today, mate. Guys, there's no more. We can't bury our heads in the sand anymore. We have to do something now.
You're a tough guy, Craig. We need more people like yourself standing up to the evil in the world. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, and you're doing a great job getting the word out there, mate. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Power to the people.